right, good afternoon, River State. Welcome to the sunny side on 92.3 Nigeria Info. 19 minutes gone past 12. We're going to kickstart our conversation on the show today with property inheritance and how that affects women. Now, of course, in this part of the world, it is always a conversation when someone dies in the family, maybe your grandfather or your father dies, and the children come together after the burial, after the mourning period, in some cases, some earlier than that, you begin to talk about the property and how you begin to share them. How do women get impacted by these in Nigeria? We're going to start a conversation with that on this hour. At 1 o'clock, the news update is always SMEs and startups. It's a Wednesday. We're going to have that conversation at 1:30, and at 2 p.m. the news updates. And then I'd like to know what you consider moral. When we talk about morality in Nigeria, it's always far-fetched. It's you can't put it all in a bucket. But I'd like to know what you consider moral. We'll look at that at 2 o'clock. Once again, you're welcome.
Connect with your customers. Advertise on 92.3 Nigeria Info. Visit our downtown office at Shop 9, Mediatrix of All Gracies Plaza, opposite FIRS, Stadium Road, Port Harcourt, and book your commercials. Call 0817 001 8162. That is 0817 001 8162. And let us connect you to your customers. Connect with your customers. Advertise on 92.3 Nigeria Info. Visit our downtown office at Shop 9, Mediatrix of All Gracies.
News headlines and be the first to comment and contribute. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info PH. Like us on Facebook, www.facebook.com/Nigeria Info PH. Also watch and listen to us online. Visit www.nigeriainfo.fm.
Different ideologies,
different perspectives.
Share your views on the sunny side.
92.3 Nigeria Info.
Let's talk.
Let's talk.
Welcome back to the show. Let's begin the conversation with inheritance. Now, as a way of building a foundation for the conversation, inheritance is the practice of transferring property, titles, debts, rights, whatever else, obligation, to an heir of a person upon the death of that person, either by way of will or through the prevalent laws of succession. Now, there is no bigger pain than losing a person, losing a family person, maybe a father, a mother, a grandfather, a grandmother, an uncle. But what I find to be even more painful is the entire procedure of trying to share property. If you belong to a big family, or you're from a big family, or perhaps a wealthy family, you will understand, you will be able to relate with how this feels like, having to share property. And then you will know that your brother or sister who looks out for you every now and then does not really look out for you the way you imagine. But in Nigeria, there is a certain kind of body language, that is perceived, or when you raise the issue of a woman, especially, and what she could possibly inherit from her parents. And even more, the notion that a woman once married may or may not be the first consideration, since, quote unquote, she now belongs to another family. Now, this obviously brings up the conversation that many people prefer not to have, which is gender equality. Do you think that women, single or not, could be given equal rights when considering sharing inheritance? How can we begin to change how women are perceived of in families that believe in their customs and traditions regarding property inheritance? What solutions will you also provide if your family were at a point of deciding whether or not to allow your sisters share in your inheritance? Well, there's a legal aspect of this conversation. We will not be delving into the legal aspect, but we'd like to know how customs and traditions have played a role in how women are perceived of when it comes to property inheritance. When it comes to inheriting your husband's property or your father's property or mother's property. I have with me in the studio a guest. She is a doctoral candidate of social and political philosophy with an interest in gender studies. She's also a women development expert. She's a founder of Dare Women for Change Initiative, a non-profit organization that is focused on polishing and empowering the potentials of girls and young women in disadvantaged communities through targeted initiatives in education and mentorship, and also advancing an end to sexual and gender-based violence. Chigaemezu, Regina. Good to have you join me. Good afternoon, Regina.
Good afternoon, Gabriella. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So let's kickstart the conversation with the why. Why do you think women are always found at the back seats in conversations like this?
From time immemorial, we all know, the society has long been a patriarchal one where women are often relegated in the background when it comes to concerns about not just inheritance, but on nation building, so to say.
Yeah.
As regards why, it was Aristotle in his teachings on women that stated the reason why women are often relegated. And I would want to quote or establish my conversation from what Aristotle said. And who is Aristotle? He's an ancient philosopher, right? And most of the theories, most of the constitutions we have in our present time, in our modern and contemporary time, are often borrowed from the thoughts and opinions of these ancient philosophers. So they think that women are weak, women are feeble. Why? Because she is the other. When I mean the other, she is like a replica of a man. So in considerations as to who fronts in nation building, who should lead the people, like Plato called the philosopher king, they always consider the male or the man to stand ahead. And then the women are more or less reproductive, home tending, home managerial kind of responsibilities delegated to them. So they feel, according to their thoughts and opinions, women should be relegated to domestic chores, home managerial duties, and for reproductive functions. So it is from these thoughts, that most of the constitutions, I get it that you wouldn't want us to get into the legal aspect, but
right.
Then where and how did they start from? It is either started right from the ancient time, from the time immemorial, patriarchy, although matriarch was there before patriarchy, but what is dominant in our present time is patriarchy. And these thoughts were somewhat established and, borrowed from the thoughts of the ancient philosophers.
And we've obviously carried it from generation down to generation. And
absolutely.
Now we're here. Do you think perhaps women themselves have played a role to where we are today? Because again, if I come tell you, look, I have this loaf of bread and I think it's good for you, it's going to make your skin glow, it's going to make your hair grow, whatever, and you say no, I can't force you to buy my loaf of bread. So do you think perhaps women have played a role, in regards to where they are in terms of taking the back seat?
Yes, to a larger extent, and no to a lesser extent. I will start from the larger extent. Yes, being that the women of today were indoctrinated by the significant adults that raised them. Our mothers in the past believed on these roles, the cultural roles of being reproductive, domestic, conditioned kind of roles. They embraced those roles with their full chest, if I'm to use that word. So, we as the today's women have grown to be indoctrinated by the thoughts of what we saw growing up. So women play a larger resonance to this because they are the custodians of what we see. If, for instance, a wife married to a husband, a wife to a man sits and hears or is in a discussion or a conversation where when property distribution or entitlements are discussed, what stops the woman from, confidently speaking up to say, I think or I feel the female should also, partake of these entitlements. But because culture, now let's get back to the barriers or to what's conditioned women to be like this, right? There are cultural and traditional barriers to these, aside the legal barriers. These cultures conditioned the women of then, to act the way they did. But as the generations, as things are unfolding in the recent generations, women are becoming more enlightened and seeking for such rights. You get to see that today's woman, it's challenging such barriers and such status quos. So yes, to a greater extent, women were custodians of these things. I could say in their ignorance, or just because of how they see things happened in the times of old. It was just okay for a man to set out and do all that protective thing for the family while the woman is at home fending for the home and doing the domestic chores. But it's as though things are unfolding and evolving for the better.
Now, I want us to break down how culture and tradition has been able to mold us into this kind of thinking. In many cultures, look at the northern part of Nigeria, for instance, where we have the lowest percentage of women who own property, who own land. Less than 2% of women in the north own property of their own in their name. And then when you talk about inheritance, that's a different ballgame entirely. Let's look at the eastern part of Nigeria, for instance, where look, if you're married into another family, you may or may not have access to your father's property, depending on what state you're from in the eastern part of the country. In the west, they have their own peculiarity with their tradition and culture. In the south, they also have their own peculiarities. But one common denominator of all of these traditions we have in Nigeria is the fact that women are second. So when you're talking property, there is always the condition of but. So it's either, are you married? It's either, did you go to school? It's either one thing or the other, where you find women are always second option. So you first share the property amongst them, and I say, okay, let's look at the lady. Come, you are the first daughter, but you're married to another man from another city, so you may not have property because it will go to your husband in his name. Or, oh, you're single, you didn't go to school, so we're not there are so many forms barriers, in which these things come in relegating the woman to the back seat. How do you think perhaps we can begin to look again into our culture? Because again, it's a very touchy area in Nigeria, where in Africa generally, when you're talking culture, say no, that's a ancient tradition. You cannot come change tradition. Tradition is tradition. Culture is culture. Modernization is modernization. How can we begin to look into these cultures across board and see how we can begin to make some of the modifications that we should make to embrace women and give them that equal right?
Okay, I'm from the eastern part of Nigeria. To be precise, I'm an Igbo from Imo State. And where I come from, it's not really a taboo, but it's unheard of for a lady to be in the midst, in a gathering of men, having discussions that, will bring about the development of the community or of the family, right? But then there is also this segment called the Umuadas. Umuadas. These Umuadas are like the first, yes. They are the firstborns, the first female borns of every family. And then they constitute a gathering of women who, in quotes, speak for, the development or for the rights or for the goodwill of other women. But then it seems as though, where I come from, that their opinions or their suggestions most likely are still being influenced by the men, right? Because when we talk about inheritance, or let me take the practice of widowhood, for instance, you see a woman who lost her husband, and while still in the mourning state, the Umuadas will try to humiliate this woman. It is still the same Umuadas that shave the hair of a widow. It is still the same Umuadas that, you know, condition this widow into some humiliating acts. And when you ask them why they are doing this, they tend to project what they learned from the male. Now, why did I start up with this instance? The fact that we have the men, in my place, they have different age grades, who, you know, quote and unquote, have the sole responsibility to have discussions on how the community will grow, on how the kindred or the family will grow. In such gatherings and in such meetings, it's like a taboo, so to say, for women to be seen in their midst. So when discussions about women development, or when discussions that will appeal to the goodwill of women are being raised, trust me, the men will totally kick against it. So who now becomes the voice of women in such gathering? In the sense where we also have the Umuada, who we quote and unquote expect to, you know, speak for the goodwill of the women, are still being indoctrinated by the male age grade, and are still being influenced by the decisions of these ones. How then do we forge ahead with having discussions about gender equality, or women having equal access to entitlements and inheritances? So I would suggest that the Umuadas I would suggest whatever it's called in your culture, but I am sure that for every culture there is a constitute of women who speak for the goodwill of women. Yes. So those women should begin to, you know, unspeak those things that they have been speaking that are against the, will I say, development of women, and begin to speak for the goodwill of women. They shouldn't be influenced by what these men say. We are the women. We know where our pain points are, right? It only takes a woman to share the experiences of womanhood. So when you allow the men to make such decisions for us, they do not understand what's, you know, how pained, not really, okay, let me not use the word pained, but how important it is for women to be given such access, or such, you know, equal access to entitlements and inheritances. So the Umuadas should begin to do what they ought to do. Right? They should be the voice we need to reproject what has been long projected in our cultures. And I'm glad to say that today I'm not the firstborn, but in my family, my elder sister, our first daughter, she's enlightened. And if she is opportune to be in such gathering of Umuada, I trust the kind of words she will say, because she is enlightened at this time. She has seen how evolved the world has become, and she has seen the need for women to be empowered, or to be given access to equal opportunities.
Now, let me ask a question as a backdrop to, as a follow-up rather, to what you just mentioned. Do you think that the reason why there are still recorded number of women who are relegated when it comes to inheriting property from their parents or whoever is probably because, or influenced by, the level of enlightenment that these family members have been exposed to? Do you think so?
Yes, I think so. Or rather, yeah, I think so, to a point, because the kind of information or knowledge we have access to today, most of our parents then had limited access to such informations. The world has evolved. The world has evolved in the sense that we need a balance. We need a balance of both male and female to help things grow and become better, right? It's more like a burden for just the men running the stuff. They need help. They need assistance. Why are we there? We are there for as helpmates, right? Not just in the home, but outside the home, right? There are things we could do outside the home. So I feel that these women who, you know, way back were just conditioned as to what they saw in their environment, and as to what culture made them see, made them act in such way. Right. So as we are growing now, having access to this information, civilization, so to say, even technology has, you know, evolved a whole lot of things that our parents then, or the women custodians as at then, didn't have access to. So the more we have access to these informations, we become more enlightened as to what more we can do.
So does that mean that the preservation of tradition of our culture is dependent on how enlightened we become?
the preserve culture first, it's called people's way of life, right? So if we evolve, if we grow from okay, let me use this instance. We know of a certain denomination in Christendom that once said to watch television is a sin, right? But because the trends of things in technology and in civilization has now made this same denomination to, stream live their programs from wherever, anytime, anywhere, right? So do we now say that that's way of life that they had then, will I say is diminished because they couldn't preserve it? No. What I'm trying to say is life is in stages, right? This world also evolves. As it evolves and as new innovations come up, for you to remain relevant, you should follow the trends and evolve. Culture is a people's way of life. If our former way of life is no longer favoring the new innovations, then we ought to alter it and change the pattern.
So that means that culture and traditions should also evolve.
Yes, cultures and traditions should evolve. For instance, the culture of killing twins evolved.
Yeah, you're
right. So
it
should evolve. The more we are enlightened, the more the cultures are altered. It's our way of life. We decide how we want to live. And if the pattern in which we've been living seems, no longer favoring the new trends or innovations, then we alter, we adjust. Life is about adaptations and adjustments. You make adjustments to suit the new trend.
All right. We're going to open the phone lines shortly, so you can join in on the conversation. I'd like for you to tell me what you think. Do you think that women should be considered equally when sharing inheritance? Think about your family, your brothers and your sisters, and for instance, God forbid, one of your parents dies, or maybe you have a grand aunt, uncle, whoever. Would you be comfortable with the idea that your sister gets equal share of the inheritance as yourself? And as ladies as well, do you think that you should be considered equally when sharing inheritance? Let's talk. The phone lines are open. 0817-923-0002, 0817-923-0003, 0817-923-0007, or 0817-923-0009. That's the female line. You can also join the conversation via Facebook and Twitter. We're streaming live, so you can go watch as you comment on Facebook at Nigeria Info 92.3ph and on Twitter at Nigeria Info PH. The WhatsApp number is 0809-030-6416. Good afternoon.
Hello?
Good afternoon. Turn off your radio.
Am I speaking with Gabriella?
Yes, you are. Go ahead.
Okay, Gabriella, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Tommy. Gabriella, I can see that I think civilization started from Africa. And the Africans have their way of doing things. Now, if an African have decided to call a man by his name and call a female by her name, I'm sure that there are differences between these two persons. Now, even in the Bible, they said that the man is the head and all ramifications, and the woman is a helpmate. Now, how can you begin to share equal responsibility with a helpmate? Now, in terms of sharing formulas in the house when a man died in the family. Now, if a woman is married somewhere far from your house, now, are you telling, okay, from where he's married, maybe his husband is a governor or a minister or any of the disappointees, you will not come to your family where you have a wretched situation and he says he wants to come and share one room or two rooms because he's a daughter or he's a first daughter. So what I'm saying is that this is not done that way. The thing is that woman is a woman. As soon as he is married, what is the essence of coming to share equal responsibility in the house? Okay, that is one. Secondly, it is of two ways actually. There are things that will happen if you want equal responsibility.
Not responsibility, inheritance.
Okay, inheritance.
Yes.
Okay, there are things that will happen that if a mother dies, the first wrapper that is in the box, it is given to the women. I'm sure you know. So it happened that way. There are certain things they give women. But it's not
Rapper.
a right.
Things like rapper and...
It is a constitution. they gave some rappers and other. They said this to people, and nobody can dispute that. So in terms of that, they are giving them, but it's not a right that it must happen that way.
All right, thank you very much. Yes, so women deserve wrappers and pots and boxes of clothes and calabash. Interesting. Interesting. Good afternoon. You're welcome to the show.
Hello, good afternoon, Gabby. My name is Dr. Kukale from UK.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but just like the last caller said, I don't think it's actually right. Women deserve inheritance from their parents. Just like when my father died. Our first daughter, I'm from a polygamous home, our first daughter did so many responsibilities. There was a portion of things that was given to her to do, but during the sharing of our late father's property, she did nothing, and it's so painful. The last caller said if a woman is married to a governor, you expect her to come and have an inheritance for her parents. But you expect that same woman that married the governor or minister to bring the good amount of money to come and do the burial. It is not good. Women is losing in terms of parental inheritance. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. Hello, good afternoon. Hello.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, please.
Go ahead.
Okay. My opinion is that the language equally might be raising an issue and distracting us from something very, very more important, which is the fact that women should be given share in the family wealth as a human dignity issue. I have a personal experience of something we are dealing with in my family now. I'm the last in the house. I have an elder sister who happened to be divorced recently. Now, my other brothers are doing something I don't like, trying to suggest that she's not a part of our family. In fact, even having the guts, the effrontery to tell her go back to her husband's house and that she does not have a place in this place. And I looked at it, and it's causing a problem in my house because I feel that she is the daughter of my father, and nobody should tell her when to enter our house and when not to enter our house. And if she decides that her marriage is not conducive for her, this person should be able to come back to her father's house and feel safe and have every authority to stay in that house. Now, my opinion is, parents, and now I have a daughter, society is not going to tell me what to give to my daughter. I'm going to make sure that her future is secured. She's going to have inheritance. However, issues that concern family properties in the village, for instance, in sharing them, I do think that, and thank God for what your colleague was talking about, evolution. Things are changing now. There are other properties in the community owned by our father that might not be on the one they call ancestral land. They can be given to the women. We say that their sons, their children that they gave birth to in where they went to marry is our own children. If they are our own children, how much more the mother that gives birth to them? So how did they become less of our children because they have gotten married? So I think we should approach this thing from a point of view of not fighting for rights, whether it's women rights or men rights or who should have rights or not. But human dignity is involved in this conversation, and it should be approached from that aspect, my opinion. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We'll get back to the phone line shortly, but you can send in your messages via WhatsApp. The WhatsApp number is 0809-030-6416. On Facebook at Nigeria Info 92.3 PH. On Twitter at Nigeria Info PH. Let me come back to my guest, Regina. Now, let's talk about the nuclear system of family, right? You have the father, mother, children. That makes up a family. In that family unit, who's the head of the home? The man, apparently. Well, that's what it's supposed to be.
Yes.
In that setting, right? How do I? Okay, let's assume you're eating. You will not give your husband the same portion of meat as you would your children. That is because you perceive of your husband to be the head of the home. Do you still believe that in this present time we're in, we still believe in that man figure, being the head of the home, and as such should be accorded much more as the head than the woman. Do you believe in that?
I still do believe in that. I'm a very family-oriented person, and yes, I accord men that respect. So in the home, the male figure still remains the head of the house.
So from that premise, would it be safe to also say that when it comes to inheritance, the men should be given more inheritance than the women just because they are men?
Okay, I would love to draw my response from the last speaker. I quite appreciate the last caller, rather. I appreciate the fact that we even have men who are, beginning to understand these things, that as women or as ladies, we are first human beings before the society conditioned us women, right? And then began to place these responsibilities or define or condition our responsibilities or our existence. So I would particularly love to appreciate the last two callers that talked about engaging this, not from the angle of rights, but from the angle of human dignity. First of all, I will start with saying the access or the entitlement that it's being shared by the man or by the husband and wife to their children, it's dependent on how they choose to do the distribution. I know of a home right, that while this man or while this husband and wife still lived, they've done what I would call a distribution of some of their property.
Really?
Yes. And in a situation where they had just a guy or a boy or a man, how was the distribution done? It was evenly done. So I think it's a subjective sort of decision. It's about how those involved, the husband and wife involved, decides to do this. It shouldn't be done on the basis that, okay, this is a man or this is a woman, so the man should be given more access to, should be given a larger portion of the entitlements more than the woman. So it's a subjective thing, and like I was sharing from an experience I know of, the parents or the couple in question evenly distributed what they had to the children.
All right, we have some comments on the Facebook. Sadly, we have just about 4 minutes for this conversation. Victor Marcus says, yes, but not equally when it comes to the sharing. For example, the men should always possess more in the sense that they will be the ones to take care of the house and family when the women are gone. Ajay Paul Chigoke says, yes, that is, women should be considered equally. Chidozie Nwaneri says, well, this is a very good topic which has been hidden. It depends on the wealth of the parents. Yeah. If the parents have a lot of wealth, loving his children, of course, he can share property equally or as he wishes. And Yesio Daniel, still on Facebook, says, every parent should decide for themselves. I'll give my daughter whatever I decide and my son whatever I decide. It is not possible, or rather it is possible, that people with better management skills and stake in the family may get to keep more of the family wealth. For me, the key is family wealth and not inheritance. Cheesy Tracy says, they are human. They should have the right to inheritance. Lucky Kabari says, not at all, because they, women, will be married out to a husband. I see. Matvin Nsikak Joseph says, not equal at all. A lot abuse such privileges. How can a woman abuse equal right to inheritance? I wonder. Mark Anthony Gilbert says, yes, it will make men value them. If they later get married or if married, the husband will respect her more. Richmond Mayor says, not at all. All right, back to the phone lines. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, Gabi.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, I'm on the I'm calling from Nkoro.
Go ahead.
My sister, woman born men, so also give them equal rights. Without woman, I can't see the man. So this thing they are talking about woman like this one, no, don't do that. If I'm sharing property, if maybe I'm sharing my father's property, the way my son will take, maybe I will use one and pass her. If I want to pass her too, I give my full rights. So everything will balance. But when I'm not there, she will be there. Thank you very much. God bless you.
All right. Thank you very much for your thoughts. Good afternoon. Hello.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. You're welcome.
Okay. I must say this is a very, very interesting conversation here right now. I just want to say that it's not actually easy being a woman in our society, and that's just the truth. There's a whole lot of segregation, a whole lot of cultural imbalance, and all that kind of stuff. On a lighter note, I just want to say, if people are actually saying that they should review our constitution, I think even our cultural constitutions too should be reviewed.
Right.
That doesn't allow women get certain entitlements. I mean, for God's sake, why would I have a child because she's a girl? You're telling me that I cannot give her my property or something? It doesn't make sense. I personally have 3 girls, and I don't imagine someone telling me, no matter what cultural thing, that I can't give my girls something. So I think a whole lot should be done, culturally, because that's where the main issue comes from. Culture, no, in our culture, this is it. In our culture, this is done. In our culture, no, we don't do like this. No, those things need to actually change, and they need to make the girl child and women see themselves as even first-class citizens. And like a caller said previously, if a woman does not even give birth to a child, then a male child, there can't be a male child. So a woman needs to be there for a male child to come. So if you're now saying that, no, the male child is better, if you have male children all over, everywhere, who now produces the male children? So certain things need to be looked into, and I think people should individually know what they want for themselves. And please forget about all these cultural things and things that don't really make so much sense. As is a woman, no, so a woman doesn't get this. As I am, I have 3 wonderful girls, and I'm working so hard so that anything I get, they also get.
Amazing.
Any of my properties I have, they get. Nobody, no one can even try it. No uncle, anybody can come and tell me that, no, you can't give your girls this. So we need to start imbibing that culture. That even will help our girls and our ladies to be more confident with themselves, so that they can, and they also believe that they can actually attain any height that they want. So that's just my contribution.
Thank you so much for your thoughts on the show. Let's head on out to WhatsApp. On WhatsApp, this says, truth is, women complain a lot. Rather than complaining, they should start getting involved. The married woman changes her identity and starts bearing her husband's name. I do not think such women should still expect inheritance from her father, but her father-in-law, knowing that she now belongs somewhere. If unmarried and not going to ever marry, wow, then she can have inheritance from her father's property. Uche Biariko. Wow, wow, wow. So if a woman is never going to marry, then and only then is she qualified to enjoy inheritance from her father. That's what Biariko says. I find that quite interesting. Anyway, Bob says, Gabby, this discussion about property sharing is necessitated by families who have acquired something. What about families that have nothing left behind to share? Well, as poor as you might be, you would have a bed, you would have chairs, you're not going to throw them away when you die. You would have to put a name to all of your little property, as it were. All right, Gloria from Port Harcourt says, when it's time to take care of our parents, the daughters are called. When it's time to bring money to solve problems in the family, the daughters will be called. From their husbands' houses, then time to share properties, the daughters will be left aside. We're not talking about rappers. The men should take the rappers and give us landed properties. I like that, Gloria. Thank you for sharing. This says, good afternoon. I'm sometimes confused with these so-called traditions. When a woman marries and tries to get appointments from the husband's constituency, they say she's not from the land.
Right.
And when her parents' properties are to be shared, her own people say she's married. She should go to her husband. Please treat a woman as human. Sadly, we can't take any more messages, but I'm sure you do agree with that.
Yes, sure.
Let's have your final thoughts on the matter then. How do we move forward, for instance, from where we are? What do we need to begin to do? I mean, we've sampled some thoughts of people, men and women, who are obviously familiar with this kind of experience. How do you think we can begin to change the mindset, not just mindsets? How do we begin to change our experiences in this regard to inheritance?
Individually, we should begin to embrace these things. We should begin to see women as humans first, right? Humans who are fully entitled to whatever it be, before conditioning them to some certain societally defined responsibilities. And then to the side of women, okay, before I come to addressing women, I want to again appreciate all the callers, especially the males who called in and in some part advocating that women should be given access to these entitlements.
Right.
It's quite interesting to hear that. So it means that our mindsets, so to say, as a society, might not be factual, but as a society, we are beginning to see these things, understand them, and we are embracing the new patterns, the new trends, and the new culture, if I'm to call it the new culture.
Right.
So on the side of the women, I would say this: the society has now begun to see the humanness in us. The society has begun to see women as capable, has begun to see the abilities or the capabilities we have as women. But now what we as women lack is the confidence to step out to even voice these things or ask for such access. So women, begin to believe in yourself, begin to believe that you are worthy, begin to see the humanness in you, so that the society will see you likewise.
All right, thank you very much for your time, Regina.
Thank you.
Thank you for making time to be here. It's 1 o'clock, time for the news update, right after the conversation continues.